Thank you so much for joining us today for the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. Here on the Pastor's Potluck, it's similar to a normal potluck where you might get something that you want and there may be something that you just want to pass up altogether. And that's okay. There's something here for everybody. Our goal here is to encourage you and maybe in the process entertain you. If you're ready, let's dig in. Welcome to another episode of the the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. We were both looking at each other like, oh, we need the energy.
Give us some energy. Yep.
It's funny, like, whenever you say it out loud and then you know that other people are going to be hearing this.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm struggling today. That's all right. Okay, hey, you stupid phone.
Listen, last week, kids interrupted. This week, phones are interrupting. It's just...
I know. It's all right. Did you see how I edited it last week?
I did not.
You should go on.
Okay.
Yeah, you got to just watch. Just scroll through it.
Yeah.
So it was the part whenever Anakin was in here and he's like, tell him that you should talk to Jesus. And he's like, talk to Jesus. And you're like, and I was like, oh, that's so awesome. And then he just went, like started screaming. I put like a little video clip that just says, please stand by. And it's got like elevator music playing.
That's great.
Yeah.
I had thought about that the other day. I was like, I need to watch that and see how that even came across.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, kids are in school this week. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. But it's a crazy week too, because there's a lot.
Yeah.
A lot to do. Like that start of school year is the start of a lot of things here. So like we're getting into routine from school, but we're also going like full force into it all here. Yeah,
into the fall for sure. And then, because you in the back of your mind, Thanksgiving, Christmas, that December 31st service, then the first service of the new year. And then it's like, okay. And then like, once you get through all that, then you're like, okay, Easter's here, groups are starting back up at the beginning of the year.
Which thankfully Easter's in April this year and not March. So we have a little bit more time, but man, it just flies. Like, I don't know. I know they say time flies and like talk about it with your kids a lot, but I feel like before you know it, it's like, wait, the month is gone.
Yeah.
I mean, we're the middle of the month already.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're about the end of the month. Basically, like
we're like 10 days away.
By the time this goes live, it's pretty much the end of the month, basically. So yeah, it's just nonstop. So
the one thing that like I struggle with the most is like once you get into like your summer routine, okay, I've got to take my kids with me to work. The ones that can't stay home by themselves or they'll die. Or you don't want to get like 1,000 like text messages from their tablet. It's just and then they get back into school. And so you're like getting out of the summer routine to get back into the school routine. Typically your work days, like for us, like we have like such a fantastic like work environment here to where we can come and go as long as our stuff is getting done. But your days are a little bit shorter because, you're dropping off the kids, in the morning, then you got to go wait in car line to pick them up. And so, you're finding like this new, for me at least, I'm finding like this new routine of, like just cramming and making sure I'm getting like all the boxes are checked, making sure like I'm making phone calls and text messages and hanging out with people on the team. And, at least once a week, trying to get somebody lined up and planned up to hang out with. And it's crazy.
It is.
Life's crazy.
But it's good.
It's good crazy, though.
Yeah.
So we're on spiritual gifts.
Yes.
Told you I'm on the struggle bus.
Yes, we are. So we're going to start talking about the themes of the different spiritual gifts. And
so give us just like the couple of themes that they have. And then we'll get into what we're talking to this week and the definition of what that is.
Yeah. So Gifts, if you take a spiritual gifts assessment on src.life with us, then you're going to see those gifts kind of broken down into 3 different themes, because we believe that all gifts have some kind of operational or personal or educational impact for the body. And we're talking about the body of believers, the church, and so they kind of break them into 3 different themes. There's functional, interpersonal, and insight. So we're going to talk about functional today.
Yeah, this one probably makes the most sense to start off with, to where we can, as we dive deeper into this, because literally whenever you hear these gifts, it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
And if you test or score higher in these, it's a lot easier to get, because it's functional.
Yeah.
It's doing.
Yes. And we'll also talk about within each of those gifts, we'll talk about where you might help serve within the church or within the body of believers, or to help build the church. Because I think a lot of times we see these and we still we're I have no idea what that means or what I'm supposed to do with that. And, but I think, functional, obviously that's going to be a lot of some of the operational, but, they really focus on the organizational working. They find their expression by enabling the church to operate in an effective and efficient manner, really. And so these really show them in roles that are more operational than the interpersonal and the insight gifts. And this is probably one of the areas that I felt like I struggled with a lot in the beginning of ministry.
Yeah.
I will say.
I was just looking at my scores. The functional gifts are the ones that I scored the highest on across the board, on average.
Yeah.
Whenever you split the gifts into those 3 different categories. But the functional gifts, and which is really weird, but but it also has one of them is my lowest scoring one.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah. It's interesting. They all just depend on how the Spirit gifts you in those ways. But there are things we'll just list them real quick. You got administration, apostleship, evangelism, faith, giving, and leadership are what we consider the functional gifts. If you take the assessment, those are the ones that are blue in the color code system. And so these are the ones that they really help to contribute to the overall running in various ministries and the outward direction of the church. Because I think sometimes we think of functional being just that administration. Yeah, we'd think that would go with that. But then also knowing that there's not just the ministry that happens within the church, but the outward expression of it. And so there's some of those ones that I rank higher in.
Yeah.
And so we'll talk through each of those. Which is the first one. I think you are the top ranked on staff for administration.
Yes.
Is that your highest gifting?
Yes.
Or is that, yes.
Yeah. Well, I have that.
Yeah.
That one, and then there was another one in the interpersonal gifts, which is a tie.
Yeah.
But it goes a lot with the administration, and it's just service, and we'll get into that next week. But yeah, I'm a systems and a process guy. I like to know what's happening, when it's done, when it's due.
Yeah.
I like to look at a task or an objective and set goals in between that. I actually did this morning with my wife because we were talking about some finances and stuff like that, and some things that we want to try to make happen around the house. And so I just set out these goals, okay, by this date, we should, if we save this amount of money, we'll have this. And then, by, a month from now, after that date, then we'll have everything that we need to be able to purchase, the tools, the raw materials. And then we can begin to, work on this together, because I just don't want to do I have the money now to be able to do something? Yes. But do I want to do it smart?
Yeah.
Because I don't want my wife's car just to quit working and then
not have the money for it.
Not have the money to be able to fix it, or to just make a down payment on something, whatever that looks like. Like I have money. So yeah, I'm a process guy. I want to make sure everything's in the right order, in the right place.
Yeah.
You know, I want to show up on time. I'm, you know, like it's like everything.
Yeah. And so administration, you know, that the quick definition is to develop, articulate, and accomplish tasks for the accomplishment of objectives for the body.
Yeah.
And so it's like you accomplish things for the accomplishment of the bigger thing. And so that's where like the program we use called Asana, like you excel at that really well. And you want all the things assigned with the due dates, where other people are like, just assign me the main thing and I'll look at the other stuff. But you want it all because you are good at, you know, the process of going through one by one and checking those things off the list. But a lot of us struggle with that. You can see this gifting listed in scripture at 1 Corinthians 12:28. But these are things like if you like working with details, which there's a lot of details involved with putting together processes and goals, and that kind of thing.
The workbook, or the we call it the worship team Bible. It's our code of conduct, our guidelines, kind of like our standards and practices, like all into one, and it's 10 pages long. Like anytime that somebody has a question, like I'm gonna add something to it because I want there to be zero questions if you read this.
Yeah.
You know, like I want it to just be all inclusive. Like this is what you can expect.
Right.
This is what you need to know. How the process of what it looks like to try out if you're a musician, what it looks like to try out if you're a singer. You know, just all those things. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is like
the details.
I want to say when I first started in ministry, actually, I think I just started volunteering and they had us take a test. And back then, because it's interesting, because I don't think your gifts change a whole lot, but they do in ways. Like this was like bottom ranked for me. Yeah. When I was just a volunteer. But now, like the most recent one I took was a couple years ago, and it's like right in the middle. So they give you numbers, and so it's like 0 out of 100. Yeah. Because believe it or not, sometimes people do ring 0 on some of them, and it's not that you can't do them if you're low. It's just that that's not what's gonna fill you up. Like that's not necessarily gonna be your purpose or life giving for what you specifically are supposed to do to help the body. It makes sense for your role because you do a lot of the graphic things. You do a lot of that stuff. Like it makes sense to be able to make sure that, because if you're not doing those things, then what happens on Sunday falters a bit. And so like it does make sense for my role now. It makes sense for me to have a little bit higher gifting in it. And so I'm much higher than I used to be in in administration. But I'm still like, it's still really low.
It's not life-giving
compared to all my others. And it's not. I have to be in the right middle space for it. Because a lot of what I do is putting together those things. Yeah. I mean, I'm the one who typically creates the Asana assignments and stuff like that. But I have to be in the right headspace. That's why often the rest of staff gets a whole bunch of Asana things all in the same day within the same couple hours, because it's like I'm in the right headspace and I do it all in that same time frame.
One day you were going off. I think I got like 50 notifications. I know. It was amazing. But I was so excited.
See, life-giving, not life-giving. But it's one of those, it's like, I just have to know that like, I've got to be in that right place to do it, or else it's going to take me a whole lot longer to get it done than what I ever would. The parts of this, I think that I like shine in are the things like within this, it might be that you like to help others work better together, or work together better. That's something that I enjoy doing. I like helping people to collaborate and work together. And Asana is a tool that helps us do that. Like we each have our part to play in some of those things, and it helps kind of bring all that communication in one space to where we can get it done and communicate and go back and forth. It helps you all know where to go to find those graphics or those things. And so I like that type of stuff. I like helping to fine tune something to make it work better. Yeah. Like I can look at something overall and say, okay, well, this is good, but maybe we can tweak it here for it to function a little more effectively. Those types of things. But I am it's a very logical thinking area, basically.
Yeah.
And so if you are a logical thinker, just, that about yourself.
I'm not a logical thinker. I think a lot of things that are illogical, but I think I have more ideas than that may not necessarily be good ideas, but I'm glad that I have those ideas because I can see somebody else's gears turning and then they contribute something that is going to be a way better idea than that, because I'm going to think
some things you're logical though. Like with your finances, you're a very logical thinker.
Oh,
like,
dude.
You know what I mean? And so I think that there are some things that you definitely are. But I think, there's different areas where this hits where you might be like, administration, how did I score well on that?
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's one of these other little things of like, you like details, you like, the long hours, you like to help, you're an organized person, you like the charts, you like the outlines, you like, you like all that stuff. I remember one of the first assessments we took on staff, it was like, part of the explanations was like, you're very loose with details, but and I was like, what does loose with details mean? Does that mean like I just like share a bunch of, because I don't feel like I share a bunch of stuff I shouldn't share. But it was like, no, you don't. It was a further explanation. It was like, you don't care how the job gets done as long as it gets done.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, that's absolutely me. Like, you don't have to do it the same way I do. As long as you do it, I don't really care. Like I would, when I would train teachers for like kids ministry, I would give them, they would have an outline and like a whole thing that script that they could go by. But I always told them, as long as you use the scripture and the bottom line, I don't care how you teach it. That's literally what I would tell them. I would say, read the scripture, know your bottom line, pull from it what you believe is really necessary. Like, you don't have to give them a whole lot. Like, sometimes we try to teach too much. I would remind them it's kids, so you don't need to give like too much backstory or too much like crazy details. But as long as you are using that scripture and that bottom line, that's what matters.
Yeah.
And so as long as it points to that, you're okay. You don't have to use the props. You don't have to bring kids up. You don't have to do what this says. This is just a guide, but it's not the final thing. But that's how I operate, because I'm like, I'll do things totally different than other people will do.
Yeah.
I will think like, oh, this needs done, and think that somebody should just be able to do it because it makes sense. You gotta vacuum the floor. But some people want to know where they find the vacuum, if they need an extension cord, where they plug it in at. They want to know all those things before they do the thing. And I'm like, just do it. But anyway, so another one is apostleship. Yep. And this is like a big, I think, churchy word that a lot of people probably wouldn't understand or get. Oh, we forgot. So with administration, if you're high in administration, you're going to be great at some like office type work. Within the First Impressions team, we have an office team in that team. And when I started helping with that team, I realized really quickly the person who was over that team initially had said they got overwhelmed. And it made me think, oh, I need to know what your gifts are. Yeah. And her administration was really low. And so she didn't enjoy or would get overwhelmed with the office team stuff because she wasn't gifted in that. And so we made a switch, and it's been great. But like, so office type work, if you like putting together some kind of system, like I've had people who rank high on administration come in and help inputting some things in the computer for like our groups, and things for like if we have scheduled emails that are basically the same, that's just input and like, those types of, you're going to be great at coming in and maybe doing some office work for some people. Yeah. Because in ministry, there's tons of administrative things that we have to do that just you may love, but we don't always. And so, so office is a great thing for you. Apostleship, though. Apostleship, the quick definition is that you articulate the gospel in places that are geographically, socially, ethnically, or culturally different from one's background. Yeah. Now, this is obviously part of that outward expression for the church. This is, you could find this in Ephesians 4:11. This is really where I think missions is one of those.
Yes.
Because this is one that I'm very high in. This is one of my top giftings. I love missions. This is my
second to highest.
It doesn't bother me to go. Like, if you think of literally in scripture, when you think of the apostles, right? You think of the apostle Paul, for instance. What did he do? He went and planted churches. Like, he went on trips, he planted churches, he effectively communicated the gospel to people in different areas and different regions with different backgrounds. And it, it didn't bother him. Like, he was an educated man, but like, it didn't bother him. And I remember even as a young person, like, it didn't bother me to go out and talk to people who are different from me. Like, you probably, maybe you enjoy learning and hearing from and sitting around a table with people who are different from you, who believe different from you, and it doesn't bother you. You might be somebody who really has a burden for sharing the gospel.
Yeah.
But I think this is one of those that, like, your prayer life probably includes something to the effect of, like, helping others who maybe have little to no exposure to the gospel have that. And so this is something that's, like, very, very needed within the church, because you're going to help take the gospel out. Like, you're going to help with those things, with those areas. And I think even, like, within the church, when you have different people coming in who maybe aren't from around here, we have a lot of people who move to this area for work and things like that. And so you can help connect with people in that way too, within the church. Yeah. So you ranked pretty high. This was your second highest?
Yeah, this was my second highest one. And I was reading through the definition of this. So I think there was, we take so many stinking assessments around here. This one's by far the best one by a long stretch. But I have this burden to share the gospel with people. One of the things that we reiterate over and over and over and over again on the worship team is, like, let the way that we just talk to people be a way that we could share the gospel. And it's not even necessarily like the content that we're talking about. I want us to talk and live and interact in a way that is completely different from other people. I love learning from other people who are completely different from me. I think that, first off, that's important on a social level, to where you can make connections while you are conversating with someone maybe of the opposite race.
Yes.
Or someone who's probably not in the same tax bracket as you. Whatever that looks like, just what can I do to find common ground? Because once I have common ground with someone, then I can talk to anybody about anything. I really, really can do that. The other day, I stopped by Kroger over on our side of town, and there was a homeless guy there, and he had a prosthetic leg, and he has a big black and white Great Dane. And I was just like, oh, this is my way in. This is how I'm going to talk to this guy. I'm going to show him pictures of my dead dog that looks exactly like his dog. And so I did. And I went over there and I talked with him for like an hour, just getting to know his story. Like, we cut up. We just had a great time. I asked him if there was anything that he needed. I went to Kroger and got what he needed, brought it back to him, talked with him for like another 30 minutes after that. Just... He really appreciated that someone actually took the time just to swing by, because I'm telling you, this is what happened within the total of the hour and a half that I'm talking to this guy. The only other interactions that he was having was, I got you some stuff, and then people were driving off. That guy needs Jesus just as much as I do. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so just because he had a Great Dane, there was a way for me to be able just to break down some walls immediately by showing pictures of my dead dog and then my 2 alive Great Danes that we have, and just find some commonality. And His name was T-Bone. He's a great dude.
T-Bone.
I mean, he has another name, but that's his
yeah.
like street name, I guess,
Okay.
or whatever. But yeah, I mean, and I was able to just share with him. I was
Yeah.
able to pray with him.
Yeah.
He said some things that were, just kind of shocking a little bit, but I said, hey man, if you don't mind, I'd love to pray with you. And I just want God to protect you while you're out here. I want you to be safe. And I just want to pray for God's protection.
Yeah.
And then at the end of that, he was just like, you know what? You're the first time that somebody just didn't try to cram Jesus down my throat. I said, I just want to love on you, dude. Like, that's it. Like, I just want you to feel like a human for a little bit of the day, because you probably lack a lot of interaction with other people, because it's just so quick. Hey, I got you a burger. Here's some drinks. Here's some treats for the dogs. And then they drive off. Like, that happens. That happens to them for so long.
Yeah.
Some people just want to feel normal.
Yeah.
And I just saw the opening to where I can give them a sense of normalcy. And then through that, I was able to pray with them. And hopefully that's just like a little seed planted in them that we're not all Christians are not all crazy, go on a war path and try to get people converted. Like, I think through just like those little acts of sharing love and hope with someone.
So how did you rank on evangelism? That pretty high too?
All of these are all high.
Yeah, I thought
86.
So. Yeah.
So
evangelism is the next one, and this is one of those where you actually you share it in a way that brings a positive reaction from people.
Yeah,
like you effectively
it's almost
share
kind of
it
like
to
these
where
two go hand in hand.
They do, they really do, and it's the bringing people who are far from Christ to respond to that message in a positive way, where they may actually respond and accept Christ, where they can know how to become a disciple of Jesus Christ. They really do kind of go hand in hand. I'd say there are probably some who have one without being too high in the other, but I feel like they're so closely related. But it's like one is those who are different from you, like being able to cross that divide, and the other is like people wherever, like just people who are far from God, whether they're like you or not like you. And so this is also found in Ephesians 4:11, but it's some of the other dynamics with it are also like praying for those who don't know Christ. You maybe enjoy meeting new people and you make friends easily. It's funny because we both used to bartend. And so, I mean, when you bartend, like you literally they sit at the bar, you serve them drinks, and often you make friends with them, or they you begin talking to the other, or they're bored. So they sometimes often tell you their whole life story. So, people will say that bartenders are like therapists a lot of times. And so
we just give them the wrong prescription.
Yes. Now we're giving them the right prescription, right?
Look at what.
And so it's like we always had that within us, but now that we're saved, we get to share the right stuff with them. And so, just little nuggets for you guys about us, but so you're able to really share your faith easily. And you're really not satisfied with superficial commitments. I think both of us feel this, like at times where we get maybe frustrated with people because we're like, man, you say you believe in Jesus. Why aren't you letting him change your life? Like, why aren't you doing this? Like, you just so easy to just, I mean, it's not always easy, but do this and you'll see some change. And I think sometimes we get frustrated because we see in ministry, we see the potential, but we see that they're not really actively trying to better their lives. And so it can cause frustration, or we're not satisfied with that. We want to push people to those things. And that's why I love your handbook, because you push people to really be who they should be, and to be authentic and real, and to get into a group. That's one of the things that you require of your worship team, that they're a part of a group here at Southern Church, because that's going to help them grow in their faith. And help them to be able to take those next steps.
Yeah, because the songs that we sing on Sunday, I mean, the songs are going to get sung.
Right.
It's what are you doing the other days of the week that you're growing closer towards Jesus. And that's ultimately what I want to see people thrive in, is, being a part of something that is greater. It's a challenge at times to go to group, but I know that at the end of the day that your life is going to be a little bit better. Your relationship with Jesus is going to be a little bit closer. And that's ultimately what I want, because I mean, songs, like I said, songs are going to get sung, but just because of the position that I am, I believe that whenever I'm standing before Jesus and we're kind of going over life's details and how I maximize time and all of those things, I want him to go, man, you really did a good job of pushing people towards me. Yeah. And because of that, like, look at all these people that are here, or, look at, just what, I don't know how that conversation is going to go, but I want Jesus to be pleased with that effort, because you and I both understand the freedom, we've come from different things that were enslaved to us. Yeah. So we understand the freedom from those chains of bondage, the chains of addiction, the chains of heartache and frustration. We are very closely understanding the chains of mental health, and how heavy of a burden that is. Yeah. And but so we know that freedom that is found in Jesus,
that freedom and that hope and peace and all those things that like you can only really find in Jesus. And so I think but that's part of evangelism, is being able to share your story of how God has brought you from that. Yeah. To give you to get you to this place now. Yeah. And that's like that effectiveness of it, to where people respond good to that. Like, because it's like, hey, this is where I was, this is where I am now, and it's all because of Jesus. And we often, like, people who have this gifting, maybe you're better at, training or motivating other people to share their stuff. This is a part that I'm passionate about. Is helping other people, like training and equipping other people to be able to do the same thing. Because like, I remember in kids ministry, when I was in kids ministry, there were some people who didn't think that I should let anybody else teach the elementary kids. And I'm like, no, like, my job is also to help equip and empower other people to do that. Yeah. And that's something that also gives me life. I rank pretty high in this too. And so like, that was also something that I remember sitting down with a pastor who hired me, and he'd say like, what fills your cup? And I'd be like, well, teaching and whatever. But also I really enjoy training other people to do the same thing. And so, I would train and equip other people to effectively share that stuff. But I think this is an interesting thing, because I think this comes out in a lot of different ways. It can come out in your teaching style. I think it comes out when you lead worship, like those moments that you have where you maybe speak or share in between songs, like when you're feeling led to do that, you share this in a way that does help people respond positively to what Christ can do. You share those parts of your story. I think that's huge. I think people who kind of are on the front lines of things, like guest services, I think oftentimes people with this gifting would be great there, because their whole part is to help you positively respond to even being here in the first place. Yeah. But I also think like it comes out within outreach stuff as well. But in preaching or teaching, we did a series here one year where, when it was the last time that Pastor Scott took some time off, he only had 3 weeks, but it was 3-week series, and we did spiritual gifts. And that last week, myself and one of our elders that was here at the time, we both preached from the same text. Yeah. Short sermons, like 10, 15-minute sermons. We did Cain and Abel, but my approach to it was more evangelistic. My whole sermon was pointed to the matters of your heart, like in changing the motivation of your heart to be one that follows after Christ. Yeah. Hers was totally different, because she was really high in that like wisdom and knowledge things. So she pulled out the meanings of the names and all this stuff, It was totally two completely different sermons, but he talked about how our gifting played a part in the way that we presented that. Yeah. And so I think like within that, maybe you have the teaching gift, which we'll talk about at another time, but like the way that you teach and preach, the things that you pull out from the text, from the scripture, is going to be different based on some of your other giftings. And so But yeah, so faith is another one. Faith helps to envision with clarity and confidence God's future direction and goals for the body.
I don't know. I don't remember where I scored on this. Let me look really quick.
Yeah.
I did all right. It's a 79.
Yeah.
It's not something that I guess just because I haven't been in like a role to where like I'm overseeing everybody. So like this is what would be obviously super, super high for Pastor Scott.
Yeah.
I'm just let's just make whatever Pastor Scott says happen.
Yeah.
Happen. So
yeah. Well, that's where like I think that I was surprised by my score on this too. Like, cause I had several that were all like the same number. And so this is one of those too, but I was actually surprised because I think that when I was in kids ministry, it was probably a bit lower, but I think in my role now, like I have to have a little bit more of that clarity and vision, and also like, and sometimes that clarity and vision comes from Pastor Scott, but, helping to lead, the missions team, helping to lead groups, helping to lead some of these other areas, like, I have to have some clarity and vision for knowing how to do the body. I mean, I'm working on the processes for next step stuff for faith and baptism and all those things. And so, so it's interesting to see like how that plays into my role, but also within the body. But this is like, maybe you're somebody who's much more interested in the future than the past. Yeah. Like, I think we all know those people who are hung up on past stuff. Like, I'm just
That's a heavy weight to carry.
Yeah. I'm like, who cares what happened then? Like, who cares if we used to always do this? Let's, that's not how we have to do it going forward. You're a positive thinker and frustrated with negative people. This is me, like, to a T. I get really frustrated with negative people that are like constantly negative. I get like, it wears me down. And I'm usually trying to bring a positive side of things. Like, I'm usually looking at it and being like, okay, but what can we take from the positive? And this even is like within life circumstance too. Yeah. Where I do this a lot, where even though something might be really crappy and really hard, I mean, sitting down with somebody and crying over a diagnosis, I'm like, but you don't know what God's going to do with this. And then, I'm sitting there pulling out, like, you don't know, he might use this to bring, this person to faith. He might, you don't know. And I was sitting there like giving all this stuff. That's what I do. I think that's part of where faith comes in at times, because and I think part of it is where I've seen that happen. Like, some of the worst things that has ever happened to me, I've seen positive things come from it. And so, but
the last line is what is me. Sometimes expect too much of others and can't understand why they don't live by faith. Yeah. Like that's it's a struggle of mine, because I'm just like, look, I mean, you've been serving God for 20 years. Like, why are you so stinking, for most of your life, why are you thinking this way? Whatever God has planned for this, it's going to be great and it's going to be amazing. It may be a difficult road to walk through, and I've walked through difficult roads. Like, I get it. Like, but I mean, just imagine the testimony that's going to come out of this. Like, it's going to be amazing. And then like, people are going to be so drawn to your story. And then because of that, people may get saved. Like, it is okay. Like, I know it sucks, but it's okay too. But it's okay.
I think that's how, like, people need people like us in their life to point them to that. Because I think when you are in it yourself,
I know
it is hard to see that. You know what I mean? It's hard to envision that. It's hard to have any clarity in that. Like, it is hard. And so having some people that can pull that out, I think, is really important, even though it probably frustrates them to death in those moments. But because sometimes they're like, I don't want to hear what you think. Like, I just want to sit in my misery for a minute. And I think there are moments and times for that. But it's
like, I try to put myself in other people's shoes, and I'm very fortunate, that both of my parents are still alive. They're in pretty good health, all things considered. And, like, all of my brothers and my sister, they're alive. And, I've got, my family is like really great. God is like, you could see his hand has been on my brother's lives this last year, because each and every single one of them has gone through some very difficult and trying times with job situations and, you know, with just whatever they've had going on. But I know that if something were to happen like in the opposite way, if I were to lose a parent, if I were to lose a sibling, or if somebody was to get diagnosed with some kind of crazy disease or illness or something like that, I know that even going through and walking through those things, I'm going to have more questions than I will ever get answers for. Yeah. But I do know this about myself, that I'm going to continue to trust God, because I've seen his faithfulness in a lot of the little things. Yeah. I've seen his faithfulness over my marriage, whenever Erica was right on the verge of wanting to pack up and leave because of my addictions. I've seen his faithfulness with his hands over my kids and their health and their things that they've, you know, gone through. Like, he's provided in ways that I would have never, ever been able to put together something. Right. You know, it, like, God's hand, he's been so faithful in those things that I know that whenever I'm facing just some mountain in front of me, like, I know he's going to be faithful even in the tough times and the large times. And so I just want people to see that faithfulness and that goodness. And so I do get frustrated. It's just like you're making a mountain out of a molehill. It's just a parking ticket. Like God has nothing to do with that. That's your fault. Yeah. You parked in the wrong area.
Oh man. Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, like people tend to play, you know, put God on, you know, blame
Sometimes
God. Oh,
they blame God or they blame the enemy. And it's like, well, I mean, also, let's be smart. Like, I literally had this conversation with someone not long ago where I was like, I mean, can we just maybe try to be smarter? Like, if you don't have gas, you don't go anywhere. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, if you don't have gas and you don't have money, you don't go. Like, I'm sorry.
And I think many times too, like, we give the devil more credit than he has control over.
Absolutely.
Oh, the sound system, you know, like the devil's in the wires. And I'm like,
they're just old wires.
We just need to replace them. Like,
yeah,
you need to donate to the worship budget so we can replace some stuff around here. Like, let's make that happen.
Yeah.
You know, like it's yeah. You know, the devil, you know, he got on my steering wheel and he made me drive fast. No, he didn't. You waking up late made you drive fast, so you're not late for work. Yes. Well, he's in my phone.
Like one of our
the devil's in that TV show that I was watching that made me be late. No, he's not. You shouldn't be watching that show to begin with in the first place.
Yeah, I remember. Speaking of positive things, so I remember when it was like a light bulb for me. I was reading through this book called Essentialism, and it talked about how people who are often late are late because they're optimists, and because it might have taken them only 5 minutes to get to a place one time. That's what they just think in their brain is going to happen every time.
That's delusion.
But it was a light bulb for me, because I was like, oh my goodness. And it also talked about how, like, you often think you can get a task done a lot quicker than what you need to. And so instead of actually giving yourself 30 minutes, give yourself double the time or triple the time, because if you're this way. And so I started doing that, and it was amazing for me. Yeah. Because I would get frustrated with to-do lists and things like that I would create, or like if I had a planner and I'd put down like the times of when I was going to do certain things, and I'd get so frustrated and feel like I failed every single time. But it was just that I wasn't giving myself enough time, because I was too optimistic about it. Oh yeah, I can get that done in 30 minutes. No problem. And really it takes me 2 hours. And so it's like, once I started scheduling less and more logically thinking about it, or realistically thinking about it, it was like so much better for me.
I think of like the worst case scenario, and that's how I give myself more time.
Well, that's what I've had to start trying to do.
I've driven to church
think that way.
hundreds, if not close to thousands of times now, since I've been here. And I know how long it takes me if there's no traffic and I hit every green light on corridor G, 119, whatever you want to call it. But I also know like how long it takes me to get to church. Like if there's nothing but traffic, I hit every red light.
Yes.
There's a fire truck blocking one lane.
Yeah. Well, and here's another. So my husband, the way he'll say how long it takes to get somewhere is he counts from like when he's pulling out of the driveway to when he's pulling into the other place. And I'm like, no, you got to do from when you're walking out that door, when you have to walk out that door to when you're going to walk in the door. Cause I'm like, he'll sit there and try to say it takes 20 minutes to get here. And I'm like, no, it takes 30 or more. Yeah. And he's like, no. And I'm like, no, it takes 30. Yeah. I was like, I drive this every day. I was like, trust me, by the time, like, I know I need to leave my house at 7 to get here at 7:30, to walk in the door at 7:30. Yeah. That's just like bare minimum. So I'm like, if I want to walk in the door.
That's if like all your kids wake up in a good mood and you don't have to fight them, buckling them.
10 minutes to get them in the car and buckled. And so like, I'm like, no, it takes 30. So I'm like, we got to be in the car ready to go by 7 to get here by 7:30. But so anyway, we're on a tangent, but
we're just talking about, we're expecting too much.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Sometimes of ourselves, but hey, but no, faith also is like one of those things where like you don't care to stand on what you're supposed to do, or that vision, or that God's given you. You don't care to stand alone in it. And that one assessment that I was talking about earlier that I remember taking, it was like you're very strong in your opinions, it said, and it's very hard to convince you to change them. And I'm like, oh yeah, because I get in that where I'm like, no, I know that this is what's supposed to happen, or what I'm supposed to do, or how it's supposed to be. And if you can convince me of a better way, or like then I'll change my mind. Yeah. But like, I don't care to be the only one who believes a certain thing.
Dude, I said that one time to the worship team. If I am like
confident that this is what God has said, like whatever, I don't care to stand alone in that, because I know that I'm standing with God. And so it's like, no, this is what it is. Like, this is what I got to do. So it's,
I said that to the worship team one time, because I was like, oh, y'all got to get in the group. I was like, that's just the new norm now. Yeah. You got to find a group. You got to get plugged in. You got to show up every week. Right. And if you don't, then that's fine. There's just not a place for you to be here. And then I'll lead worship by myself. Yeah. Do you want to talk about standing alone?
Sometimes that happens. But I think,
I'm really convinced and trying to get people to grow closer to Jesus, and but also, putting my foot down whenever I'm really committed in like things that we should be doing as Christ followers.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's also like being able to effectively communicate that vision.
And like, that was in a nutshell, for sure.
Yeah. I think that for like all staff under a church leadership, like in a church leadership, like they should be able to, even if it doesn't come from you, like you are able to effectively like communicate what that is. Yeah. And so for us, like something we've really worked on is trying to like make sure that like whatever we decide and think through at the top, like can filter down in those other areas, in those other ministry areas, like all of that, because it needs to permeate through that. And so like, knowing, I think within leadership, that's a big thing, but also I think of the people who maybe are on the front lines with meeting new guests and things like that, like our greeters or people at the desk, like oftentimes they want to know more about the church. That's something that you're going to be able to have to do, is communicate, hey, we're a church that helps people take their next steps, and those kind of things. I think like people who are overseeing a ministry area in some way, I think you're going to have a certain level of faith for that. So anyway, let's go on to giving. Giving is the next one. This is a pretty low one for me.
How do I do?
But this is to give liberally to meet the needs of others and support God's ministry with the resources which God has entrusted you. That's the main thing. Romans 12:8 talks about this.
I scored pretty high, 79 again. Like I said, all of these were like my highest ones.
Yeah.
I think that it comes from, it just comes from a background of always being so selfish and just trying to steal and try to keep a lot of things for myself. And whenever God just wrecked my world in the best way possible, it was like, okay, what's the exact opposite of what I was before Jesus? And how do I get to a point to where I can be a completely different and changed individual? And that was one of them. It was like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Like I want to, like, I'm a finance, I wouldn't say a guru, but because I'm still learning like investing and stuff like that, but I know how to save money. I know how to help the needs of other people. I know how to give towards vision and mission and do it. Like sometimes that upsets my wife. She's like, well, you gave how much to that church that needed to pay off their land in Ecuador? And I was like, yeah, I should have talked to you about that. She's like, no, it's okay. But okay. I trust what God's telling you. So
yeah. I scored a 36 in this.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things, cause it's also like meeting the needs of others. You talked about that. Like, that's the purpose of it, is to help meet the needs of believers within your local assembly or beyond it. Like, you get a sense of joy when you give.
Yeah.
Ability to make wise purchases and investments. I think that's part of like how this comes into play with you, too. But you don't need to be pressured to give. You think about others. Like when giving, you don't think about tax advantages or stuff like this. Like I'm not any of those things. Like I'm really bad. I'll say all the time, I'm like, I should not really be over like the pastoral care stuff. That's not me. I'm terrible. Even when I was over kids ministry, I was terrible about sending cards to people. I will tell somebody to their face, thank you. I will send you a text message.
Yeah.
And I'll think about people often, but I don't like necessarily always send the thing. And so I'm not great at that. Like it's nice when I get a card, but it's not like something that I really care about. So I think I'm also bad about doing those things, but but I think I give in the different ways, but probably part of mine is also that like, because of my upbringing and not having a lot, like I think that it's a struggle for me often to get to that place. Now we give, like, don't get me wrong, like we give, but I don't know that it's something that like I've always felt like super joyful about, or I'm not somebody that like, if somebody needs something, I'm not usually the first to be like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. Here's $20 or that kind of thing. I'm always like, or I don't know. Even whenever we do sometimes like dinners after funerals and things like that, I'm not going to make you something. I might give you $10 to go get some rolls. Like if you're leading it, but I am really, I don't know. It's just not within my gifting. Like I don't think I hit any of those things hardly. I will do it, but it's not my first inclination. Like I usually have to take time and really pray and like think through it to see what I'm supposed to give. I remember there have been other things that we have done in the past, not in this, like I'm all for the future campaign. Like I would like to be able to give more to that, because I think I see that faith like that. I can envision it, you know what I mean? And so I'm excited about that. But there have been things we've done in the past that it's been more of a like, hey, because we kind of do have that, like as staff, we lead the way in things. We're not going to ask the rest of the body to do something that we're not willing to do also. But I remember there were some things that I wasn't really behind, and like we weren't in a place. And I remember like it being, I felt the immense pressure to have to give, like more so. And so like we prayed about it, and we didn't necessarily give that much to those certain other things because we just didn't have it or whatever. Or like, I mean, I know in kids ministry at times when we would do different things, I would challenge the kids like, hey, I'll match your giving. I ended up at one point having to put a cap on it the next time I did that because my volunteers got in on it too.
Yeah.
And it was a lot. But that didn't bother me because it was a way to help like train kids to do the thing that they were supposed to be. Yeah. Like now I will say, as believers in Christ, we are all called to be generous. Okay. But some people have a gifting at a higher level that extends past that normal generosity that is just expected as a Christ follower. Yeah. Okay. And so like, yes, I am generous in certain ways. And I think generosity can come in various forms of not just money, but the giving aspect to help meet the needs. Like that's just not something that comes natural to me. Yeah. But if you have that, like, I mean, I don't know where this list exactly came from, but it says like, if giving is your thing, like maybe you like to be an usher or help be on the count team or something like that. But I think I don't know that that's so much like giving as much as actually like helping to meet the needs. I think of things like more like being a part of the missions team to where you know what kind of outreaches and things we're going to do or what kind of things we're going to do, even like within the leadership to say and decide what things we're doing to help meet the needs of those within the church, to like help be a part of that and get behind it and help support those things. I think honestly, we probably have a list of people that we know this is their gifting that we go to when we know that there is a need, that we can say, hey, we want to put somebody through this trellis program. We need $10,000 to do that. Yeah. Would you consider giving to it? And those are the people that are going to step up and be like, yes, absolutely. Yeah. Or the people that have that higher gifting and giving. And so, anyway, so that's giving. The last one for functional gifts is leadership. Yep. This is one of my lowest ones, which I'm kind of curious, like if I should like retake this just to see where it lands, because I feel like I've grown a lot in this area since I've been here. Almost to the point to where I'm a bit cocky about it. So this quick definition is set godly objectives, make decisions, communicate and motivate them to the body so that others will willingly follow and joyously work to accomplish these objectives. Yeah. I think this goes along with like Pastor Scott on Sunday and in the extra point was saying how like in the beginning it wasn't so much what his outward appearance, it was what was inside. It was that he hadn't developed his leadership. Like, you know what I mean? And so I think this is something that I think can be developed, but I think some people it comes naturally and gifted by the Spirit to do as well. Yeah. Like, this is the first place where I haven't been pressured to, I've been more encouraged to grow in this area and given the steps to grow in this area, as opposed to, hey, this is what you got to be doing, like right now. Like, and it's so funny because like one of John Maxwell's like biggest quotes for like growing in leadership abilities is leadership does not develop in a day. Right. It develops in a lifetime. Yes. And it's something that you have to constantly be working on, to constantly be getting better at. And for some people, like you said, it does come more naturally. And they're off to the races. They're running full sprint. Yeah. For some people, it's just a little bit of a slower process. But as long as I'm still engaged with the process, I shouldn't be like looked down upon because I'm trying. You know what I'm saying? Like, exactly. Yeah. And that's where I'm at with this leadership thing, is because like it is something that I did score low at. But like I said, I feel like I've been trying to be super intentional about. What was your score again? What is it? 39. 39. Wow. I feel like that 35. Was probably, oh yeah. Mine's at 86, But I feel like it was much lower when I first started ministry too. But I was also in a different role. However, I think that like, I do think you have to differentiate like the spiritual, Holy Spirit empowered kind and the just what you can do on your own and develop. Because this is another area where I think like people can lead. People can learn to lead and lead effectively and well. Some people are just like the Holy Spirit works within them in a different way that helps people motivate people to do the things and do the tasks and do the stuff to where they do it. And it's not begrudgingly either. I remember one of the things that I did when I took over kids ministry, when I first got on staff 11 years ago. Okay. I went from a volunteer to staff. I had only ever served in the elementary class during the 11 o'clock service. So like I knew some of the people who attended 9 a.m. service. Yeah. But I didn't know the people who served 9 a.m. service. I didn't know any of the people who served in the younger classes. And so I remember standing back there in that hallway, just waiting for people as they came in. And if they walked into the classroom, I'd be like, hey, hi, I'm Cheryl. What's your name? Oh, great to meet you. Well, I'm the new children's director. And I would have to it was such a crazy thing. And so like leading people who like literally don't know you and you don't know was so hard to do. But what I did early on, I knew some things that I wanted to have done. Like the theme was way outdated. Stuff was faded. It needed new paint. It needed all those things. But I wanted it to be their idea. Yeah. And so I had meetings with each team and I said, hey, like if you could do anything, and I would name several things. Painting and new theme was always in that list, but I would say, what would it be? And every single one of them, new paint, new theme. And so then be like, oh, great. Well, what kind of paint would you think? And they were all like, just bright, plain colors, like simplify everything, and that was right along the stuff that I wanted to do. But because I got them involved on the front end, they were like, all here, we got it done, all of that.
They ultimately think that it's their idea, and then they have buy-in. They're like, okay, like if I said that we need to paint, I guess I got to show up to paint, so let's paint.
Yes, but I'll say, like, when I tried to make changes without that, it was always a fight. Like, I always had to get some people, like, communicate with some people ahead of time, like, to get early buy-in. And I think that probably comes from part of that, like, helping people work together better. Like, also, because I'm like, I think there are certain ministry areas that it's like, it's hard to do that. It's more of like what you say goes, because it's not that big of a thing or whatever. But like with a team that size that I had, that many different classes, I knew I had to do that. Like I knew I had to communicate effectively and motivate them to do the things, because I knew there was no way I could be in 4 rooms on a Sunday. I knew that there was no way I could do those things. But I think that it's one of those that like when you're gifted in this in a certain way, then like spiritually by the Holy Spirit, then it comes easier. Like where when it's you, it can often feel like a battle. Like maybe it feels like you've had to work really hard to get the team to a certain place of whatever. And it's because of whatever reason. It's not that you're necessarily a bad leader. It's just, I don't know. It's just different. But I think that this is one that anybody can learn to be a better leader. But you may just not be spiritually gifted. It doesn't mean you can't operate in it. Yeah. Same thing like with administration. Doesn't mean I can't operate in it. It's just maybe not my best thing or my favorite thing. Or, maybe you would feel better if like people just did it and you didn't have to tell them or motivate or have to overly communicate the things. Like some people, it stresses them out, like, or drains them to have to keep communicating, keep doing that, keep motivating. Like there's some people also that, you have those people on the teams that you can tell them to do something once and they're going to do it and they're going to keep doing it, whether you stay on them or not. but there are other people that you have to just stay on them, and that's draining at sometimes. But
yes, my goodness.
yeah. But so leadership, you can find that in, I think I already said Romans 12:8, but this is something where you often set an example in the behavior in others. Like I see that in you. Others readily follow you, and they see you confidently knowing what to do next.
Maybe not so much that one.
Like,
yeah, you were waiting for me to interject. You didn't want to say it, so I said it for you. It's okay.
It's okay. But I think this is something that, like,
is there a self-awareness in this leadership?
There are times where I'm like, people come to me asking me, hey, what should we do with blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, why are you coming to me? Like,
yeah.
But they, for whatever reason, see that in me. And so I'm like, sure, do this. Like,
I also think that like it takes a while for people to buy into that as well, because like you have to have a proven track record.
Yeah.
It's easy for most everybody up on staff to be able to, like, people come to them because you've been here for like 17 years.
Yeah. I mean, 11 years, and I was volunteering at a high level before that. And
Scott's been here for, you know, close, for God knows how
13
long.
13 years.
Anna's been here for 9, going on 10. I don't know. Is it longer than that?
She's 6.
6.
I was pregnant with Esme when she came. That's the only reason I remember.
Oh, okay.
So, but yeah, so like Scott and I have been here for a long time. So I think that like people look to us a bit more because we have been here longer, you know? But
it also helps if the front door is not like a revolving door too. Yeah. Y'all just need to come to church.
Yes. Yeah. But I think like what's cool is that, and Pastor Scott and I have had some of these conversations that like we feel like this is probably the most solid team we have had in a long time. Like honestly, because I will say, like, I mean, Scott served under, before he got to this position, you know, lead pastor position, he saw lots of changes. We saw lots of changes, and that was like even when I stepped into kids ministry. I mean, I never thought that I would end up where I'm at now, but like when I stepped into that, one of my biggest things, because it was just supposed to be it was presented to me as a temporary position. And I was like, I told the pastor, I said, my question is the temporary aspect of it. I was like, I don't want the kids to then get used to me and then another person come in 5 months down the road and then them just leave another year from now. I was like, and me quit my job in the meantime. Yeah. Which was I worked at a jewelry store. I made great commission and good money. I took pennies on the dollar to come here. So like, anyway, but I was like, if I do this, I'm doing this. I was like, I don't want it to be temporary. I said, I want to give those kids some longevity, because I had seen and I had heard from like other people who had come through, like some of those kids who had just gone through that were like, you know, Pastor Jason has been the longest children's pastor we've had, but we've had like a new pastor in the kids every 2 to 3 years. And I was like, I don't want to do that to them. No. And I just remember thinking, because like I read a book early on too called Make Believe that talked about like envisioning and making that clarity in those goals for long term, even if you don't want to be there long term. Yeah. And pretending, like basically make believe, pretend that you're in it for the long haul, whether you are or not. And it was one of the most effective things for me, I think, and for my leadership development is of doing that, like of saying, no, we're gonna, because often what you were talking about, it takes time to create that buy-in and that relationship building. They say that basically like the first few years are the hardest, but if you can make it to 5, there's a shift that happens after that 5th year. Yeah. Where like basically the majority, it's like a swing that happens where instead, like maybe you start with a smaller group of buy-in. After 5 years, your initial group of hey, whatever you say, we're backing you, grows exponentially. Yeah. At that point. And it was like, I made the decision when I heard that conference talk, I was like, I'm here longer than 5 years, no matter what. Like, that's what I was like, I made that decision. I was like, I'm going to be here more than 5 years, no matter what, because I want to see that happen. I want to see what happens after 5 years. I want to see if this guy's right, like almost. And so anyway, leadership, Others readily follow you. I said, if a parent, your family also responds well to leadership. I see that within you.
Oh, dude, we run a tight ship. My
yeah.
kids, they fall in line quick.
Oh, yeah.
They say whatever I do.
Yeah. You're a well-disciplined person. Like, I think this is you. Like, you know, I think this is where, like, you hit these. Like, you are a very disciplined person, I think, within a lot of the things that you do. I have became more of a disciplined person than I ever was before. Like,
I know, dude. Your morning routine, you're crushing it.
Well,
keep it up.
It's man, when kids are in school, it's so much easier. I'm telling you. You're relaxed when in leadership positions. Like, some people, if they were told, like, hey, you're going to be helping run things while Pastor Scott's gone, it might really freak them out or make them nervous. I'm not worried about it. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. It doesn't bother me. You delegate well.
That I struggle with. But it's one of the things that I have to do. I know that I have to get better at.
Exactly. I think, like, the more you go, the more you get better at it.
I haven't touched Pro Presenter in God knows how long.
I know. See, so there's,
And I refuse to do it because I want them to do it.
Yeah. You tend to take over in a situation when there's not a designated leader. I do this. Like, sometimes I have to hold myself back. Like, if I feel like something's, like, not being led well, or, like, it's really hard for me not to want to step in.
Well, I'm critical of that stuff.
Oh,
I like to watch it kind of, but get into pandemonium a little bit before I step in, because I just want to see how tense it can get.
I had a conversation with Aaliyah a couple of weeks ago where she was like, I really just want to step in and do this. And I said, but you're not going to teach or train anybody. Like, if you do that, I said, you have to try to help them develop that and do that. I said, and you can behind the scenes be like, hey, I noticed you haven't sent this, or I noticed people haven't responded to this. You can behind the scenes, like, privately message that person and kind of help steer them so that they know they should reach back out, or they should send another message or whatever. I said, but if you do that yourself, you're not really leading. I was like, you have to be able to, like, help delegate and get people to, you know, do that. But I said, I understand. I know. I said, because I am the person that wants to just step in and take over when I feel like it's not being done well.
Well, it's different too. So, like, before I got into full-time ministry, I was trying my hardest to absolutely serve and serve well. And I wasn't allowed to.
Right.
And so whenever I had the opportunity to start serving, it was like, all right, I'm going to say yes to everything. I'm just going to come up and do it, and I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. And it's just something that hasn't left. And that's another one of the gifts is service.
Yeah.
And
which we'll talk about next week.
Yeah, next week.
Next week.
But so I mean, so there's a internal dialogue that I always have of I need to allow other people to be able to do this, because whenever I jump in and I start doing stuff, then that's preventing Jared Bodker from serving. You know, another Jared Bodker from serving whenever he really wanted to serve, and he probably was at a point to where he needed to serve.
Yeah, but I think, like, in those moments where you see that, like, there is actually no designated leadership, knowing, okay, I can jump in and just be like, hey, let's get this done. People tend to look to you for leadership and direction. I feel like we kind of hit on that a little bit also. Like, you remain calm under pressure. Like,
I have my moments.
I mean,
I think we all do, but
I look back to the very first egg hunt that I was in charge of, like, massive outreach egg hunt up here. I had decided to deliver. It was my first year delivering flyers to the schools. Yeah. And I don't even remember where I got that idea from. But that school list was a lot larger than what we deliver to now. And we had like 1,500 people come up here. All right. There was a line of cars that was backed up all the way past the Walmart, like 2 miles up the road.
Really?
People were parking on 119 and walking up the hill. It was bizarre. And, like, we only had enough food for like 800 people. And so, and we had to, like, push back all the times because we heard, like, people are walking up the hill. So we pushed back all the start times. And it was when we even like, we brought people in to do like this finale at the end where we did like a little teaching moment, gospel presentation and giveaways and all this stuff. And like people, all the volunteers were like, Cheryl, do we have enough? Are we going to have enough? And I'm like, loaves and fishes, baby. Like that was my mantra the whole day. Like anytime anybody seemed a little stressed, I was like, loaves and fishes, loaves and fishes. That's just what we're looking to. That's what we're pointing to. God can do it. And nobody went away hungry. Like everybody was fed that day.
Yeah.
And it was literally a loaves and fishes moment. But I remember I was like, I can freak out or I can trust God. And like, we're trusting God, baby. And so like, that's just
what we're doing.
That's what I had to do. But I remember like, that was one of those moments where I remember thinking I know we probably broke all kinds of fire codes in that worship center that day.
Oh,
it was packed beyond belief. Like it was wild. But it was fantastic. It was so cool. But like, yeah, even when we've done some like family experience things and there were times where like something was missed or somebody got out of order and I just was like, this is what we're going to do. Like, and I'd go back and I'd communicate it to everybody and we'd shift and we'd do it. Like we'd make it work. And it like those things it doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
Where like other people literally like you can tell they are panicking. That's not me. And so like, cause it was hard for me, I think, when I saw that leadership thing being pretty like decently high. It's not my highest, but it's decent. Like it's 86. It's a pretty good number, I feel like. And so, cause I don't always see that, but I have to look at those scenarios and be like, oh no, it's there. Like
it's funny how like all of these gifts are just kind of like interconnected whenever you think about it, because like if you score high on administration, leadership should be pretty somewhat up there. And then because like you follow your goal setting, your planning, you're doing all these things.
I think administration a lot of times is more you and the behind the scenes stuff, where leadership is like pushing others to do it. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like there's certain aspects of like, you know, just like the little tidbits, because like the whole panicking thing, like most leaders or people that are in leadership position wouldn't be in a panicking situation because they, not unless something like catastrophic happened. But you would imagine that if they were in the position that they would have been able to put all the little details and check the boxes.
But that's the thing. Like if they haven't done that, that's probably why they're panicking.
You are going to panic.
And that's the thing. Cause like it says you can organize and motivate people to accomplish a desired task. Like if you haven't done the organization of it, so that way people can do it, then it is all on you. And that's tough. Like, and so that's why if you've ever volunteered at Beauty Day, you see those things in the room of like, who's supposed to be volunteering, who's leading that, what you're supposed to do before, what you do during, what you do after, where everything goes. I put all that together. That's how I did every event, like every big scale event. That's what I would do to where like anybody could pick that up, that paper up, and they would see and they could do it. Because it's like, if you can read, then you can read this and you can know what you're supposed to do and do it. Yeah. And I remember even like that came in super like huge in hand for me. Probably my second or third year. Let's see. Yes. I don't remember if Esme was born. I don't think she was born yet. Maybe she was, but it was during Easter time again. We had switched things to where we did like a friends and family egg hunt. We were doing it on a Sunday, and we even were supposed to do a little teaching thing in there for our families and all that. But I got food poisoning during the night before. And it's like 4 a.m. I'm puking my guts out. I start having a panic attack because I'm like, I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to be, there's no way. I'm like, whatever. And then Anthony's like, hun, you have everything ready to go. You have all those papers. They can pick it up and they can do it. He was like, you just have to tell them they got to do it. And I was like he helped me calm down, all of that. But I was like, yeah, because I lead. And this is how I've set it up to be able to be done that way, to where it isn't all on me. And so like everybody was able to just step in and do it. All the leaders were already designated for all the areas. Like the only thing I think that Pastor Michael or Pastor Scott had to worry about. Like Pastor Michael did the teaching thing. He was able to step in and just teach. Cause I mean, it's basically just gospel, whatever.
Yeah.
And so, but it still was like the outline, all that was there. Everything was there for the flow of all of that. So he's able to just step into that. But if you haven't done that, your leadership's not going to be there. So like, if you have leadership skills, you can easily serve within any of the leadership ministry areas. You might be a great group leader or somebody to even help lead group leaders. Ministry team leadership. I think every ministry team has a leadership team now.
Yeah.
In some way. So like, and even if it's not, in front of like, or within a ministry area, I think like our elders obviously need to have some leadership capability. I think of people like Gina Ford, who has a lot of leadership ability, who I'm going to rely on to help come in and help me put some processes together.
Some task in Asana.
Like, well, maybe not that, but
I know
we
what
just
you're
like,
talking about.
I mean, she's done like HR stuff, helped hire and fire people within large companies and things like that, and training. Like she's good at teaching people how to train and do whatever. Like
Is that why
I
Scott
think
put you in charge while he's taking off, so you can fire someone?
No,
I'm
Lord,
just
no.
joking.
Listen, if somebody does something that needs to be fired while he's gone, well, it ain't gonna be me that does it. No. Like somebody even was like, he's coming back, right? And I was like, he better. Like I ain't ready to step into that. Like no, but no, he is coming back. Nobody's gonna get fired while he's gone. Just do your job. Don't be crazy. Don't go out and like get a DUI or kill somebody or I don't know. Gosh, that just made me feel sick.
It's all good. All right, mystery meat time. Well, hopefully this
Test
question
my
will.
leadership capabilities with that.
Yeah, hopefully this mystery meat will probably calm your nerves. I don't know.
Yeah, hopefully.
What is the most bizarre or funny job you can imagine having for a day?
Bizarre. Funny job.
I recently saw a video. This has got to be the most bizarre job I think that anybody could have. So it was a behind the scenes video of these puppeteers, that do like the puppets for like kids shows and stuff like that. And to make it look like the puppet was walking for amount of time, this guy's job was to grab the puppeteer's ankles and drag this guy to make the puppet look like he's walking across for a long period of time. That's his job. He grabs another person by the ankles and drags them. They pay him to drag people. He's a professional dragger. Like I don't know what else to say. That's what he does. It's insane.
I don't know that I could top that. I mean, I was sitting there thinking like, oh, be a clown for a day. I hate clowns.
That's the funny business.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
Paying somebody to drag somebody else.
No. Well, that's what like I was talking to some of the teens, because like some of these teens that felt called into ministry, I'm like, if you're wanting to stick around here, then stick with something basic. I was like, but like literally in some of the really huge churches you see, there are people, because I've been to kids conferences, like conferences where it's kids and youth ministry and stuff like that. Yeah. And I've met people who like their literal job, they were like the prop coordinator. All they did was help make sure that whoever was teaching had the props that they needed for the story that week.
That's a cush
like,
job.
You know what I mean? I was sitting there like, what? But I'd tell them, I'm like, there are so many small like jobs that you don't even think of within larger scale churches. But like, if you're sticking here in West Virginia, I'm just going to say, like, you're probably going to need to stick with something a little more basic and know that you're going to be, whatever. Or that you're going to, if you want to do ministry, you're going to be bivocational, most likely. And you're going to work outside the church, but you're going to work in the church also. And so, but yeah, no, funny. I'm trying to think of what would be like super fun to do. Or bizarre. Yeah, I think you got
I think
me.
it's fun and bizarre, but the people who dress up in mascots at like theme parks and stuff like that and just hug people all day.
It was the Easter Bunny. The one year we did the Easter egg thing, and that was so fun.
But it's bizarre.
It is, and it was really hot in that costume, and that was just a little bunny costume. I can't imagine.
Like, I can't get away from just going up and hugging random people's kids. But you can get away with hugging random people and random kids just because you're in a costume?
I
That's bizarre.
And took so many pictures with so many kids, and like it was hard to see. And so I'm like, sometimes I'm like worried I'm going to knock over a kid. I'd be like trying to look down at these kids because I'm short anyway and they're short. So it's like, hi, little one. But yeah, that was actually a lot of fun to do.
Still bizarre.
It is bizarre. I mean, yeah, I think working as like a Santa or whatever at the mall is bizarre.
That's
where
bizarre.
People come and all these kids sit on your lap. And
any other time of the year, you don't let anybody touch your beard.
I know.
But then just because you're sitting on some Christmas bench and you got a red jacket on, you're like, I guess I'm okay with all these people pulling on my beard.
I know,
like, that's bizarre.
One, yeah, it is. It is bizarre. You know that there's like a whole like training camp for like Mr. and Mrs. Clauses that like I know people who do children's ministry that also train people to be Mr. and Mrs. Claus. Like they go through a full on and train people to be clowns. A full on, like it's not just you put the costume on and whatever. Like it's a full on.
That's bizarre.
Training. They take it super, super serious.
That's a bizarre job. I train people to be Santa Claus. That's bizarre. That is out there. I train people to be a clown. No, you like to murder people. That's what you like to do. That's what it sounds like. I train people to. I'm a clown trainer. What? You stay away from my family, sir. That's what it sounds like. That's what it sounds like. That's what I think of. Okay, nice to meet you. I'm walking away now. I want to sing on your worship team. No, you don't.
It'd be fun to like work one of those little stands at the fair or something like that. You know, one of those little games.
Like selling food?
Throw the fishes in the jars.
See, that's not too bad.
It'd just be fun for a day.
Or what do you do for a job? Oh, I swing on this big trapeze above the sky and do flips.
Oh my gosh.
That's a little bizarre.
Trapeze artist.
It's a little bizarre.
Walk across the tightrope.
No, them idiots, they get shot out of cannons. That's bizarre.
That's bizarre.
Yeah. Hi, I'm just going to load myself into a cannon and be shot out.
I open the lion's mouth.
Yeah, I put my head in it. That's what I do.
What?
That's bizarre.
Wow.
I'm a crocodile trainer. No, you're just plain stupid. That's what you are.
Yeah. That's crazy. Okay.
All right. Cool. Sorry if you do any of those jobs.
But you're bizarre.
Yeah. I'd like to sit down and talk with you for a little bit.
We can help you find out your spiritual gifts. And get you to something else. Okay.
Yeah. I'll put the link to taking this test in the show notes. I should have done it last week, but I'm going to do it this week. If you can send that to me. No, I know what it is. I know how to find it.
src.life/spiritualgifts.
Cue that music. Thank you so much for listening in with us today. We really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You can also follow us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram. You can also watch the video version of this on YouTube as well. All you have to do is search up the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. From all of us here, we want to say thank you, and we'll see you next week.